places are not that far apart. What a different look to your sunrise this morning. It's probably the angle of where the camera's pointed and everything else, but still, that's stunning for you in Oklahoma City. Go get a picture of your sunrise right now. It's amazing. And unfortunately, it matches your forecast. We've got a high fire threat today. There's a red flag warning that is up, including Oklahoma City, all these areas in red. Wichita, you are in it as well. The air is going to be dry. The ground is very dry. Grass fires have been a problem across northern Texas. Remember last week, or maybe earlier this week, actually, it was I-20 and I-30 that were affected by some grass fires just west of Fort Worth. So the relative humidity down this afternoon, these air temperatures warming up is going to feel really nice, but it's kind of a problem because the air is dry, dew points are low, warm air in the afternoon. There's a far spread between the temperature and dew point. That's a low relative humidity, and that is going to mean a high fire risk getting into the afternoon, especially is when that will be highest. Temperatures go up through the 60s, 67 in Dallas. We're going to hit 57 in Midland. Very dry in Amarillo, where we have not seen rain in 103 days. Today will be another day without rain. Plus, it's going to be windy. Part of what's fueling this warm up is a nice south wind, and so we'll get that. This is the wind gust forecast, especially up into Kansas, where we have those red flag warnings today. Strong gusty winds. So if a fire is sparked, even just a grass fire, it's going to spread very quickly, and that's part of the concern here across the southern plains.
Go yesterday with Jen.
Yeah, a lot of people had questions about what happened because your commute was a mess in Chicago yesterday because of freezing drizzle, a glaze of ice on everything, including the interstates. So look at the radar. Look, there's nothing that showed up on the radar before about 8 o'clock. And yet, if you were driving before 8 o'clock, there was plenty of ice out there. It was just a little bit, but there was enough to coat everything that made it quite dangerous for travel. So what happened in the atmosphere? It wasn't showing up on radar, but yet there was something precipitating, right? I'm going to bring up our atmosphere and show you what was happening in all the different layers, especially down near the surface, that really made a difference. So first of all, temperatures were all below freezing. That's what we really need to focus on. So it was obviously going to be frozen if anything fell at all. But when you look at the profile of the atmosphere, not just focus on the temperature, but also the dew point, which I've put on here. And the first couple thousand feet, it's saturated, but you go up beyond that and the air was very, very dry, and that moisture was kind of trapped underneath that dry layer. So the thing is, it got cold way high up in the atmosphere, cold enough to create snow, but it was too dry for that to happen. And so when you got down to where the moisture was, there was just a little bit of lift, just a little bit, maybe just the droplets knocking against each other to create these tiny little droplets of super cooled water that fell through the atmosphere and they hit the ground. Of course, it was freezing, and so they froze on everything on contact. It wasn't flurries, it was freezing drizzle. And this type of scenario, you might actually expect nothing to happen because so much dry air aloft. But there's also the chance of flurries, which we saw some, but also the chance of freezing drizzle, which unfortunately was a predominant type that we saw in Chicago. Chris, back to you. Well, we have an exciting next half hour for you right here on AMHQ. Nick Wenda is in the studio. He's brought a tightrope, and you know what he always says? Never give up. Well, winter's actually giving up for just a couple of days as we see a nice warm-up coming our way across the plains. We are going to see that warm-up spread to the east. We'll tell you just how high the numbers get. In the west, we've got quite a doozy of a storm with big snow coming in, some big rain as well. This is the weather maker that will cross the country and bring rain to the southeast and the northeast. It's not going to be a mega snowstorm for the northeast this time, but of course there's some nuances, so we'll let you know who gets what, how much rain, and if there is any snow or enough cold air to make it snow in the forecast.
All right, speaking of snow, welcome back to AMHQ. On this day in 1924, the first Winter Olympics were open in France.
All right, we are counting down to this year's games in South Korea. It is just 15 days away.
I can't believe it.
I know.
I can't believe February is just right around the corner.
I think the year, like 2018, is practically over. And the weather is always front of mind before a death-defying stunt. And Nick Wenda joins us now in studio to talk all about it. So glad to have you here. Thank you so much.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the stunts. I'm assuming that when you do any of these stunts, weather is one of the biggest factors that you have to think of.
It really prepare mentally, physically, but the weather is completely out of our control. That's why our buddy Jim Cantori is always there with me, watching my back.
It's critical. I mean, has weather ever forced you to cancel or postpone a stunt?
Cooperated. Although, when I was crossing the Grand Canyon, as those that watched saw, I got hit with 253 mile an hour.
Or is it, I mean, can you walk on this with any moisture at all?
I can. So I walked across Niagara Falls, and it can't get any more wet than that. Actually, it was almost to the point where there was no visibility whatsoever. And so I absolutely can walk in wet conditions. Gusty, 130 miles an hour, I was sideways leaning into that wind, and they cut those wind machines off and immediately. Hard to walk on a sidewalk with 53 mile an hour gusts, as you guys know. So with that balancing.
At Niagara Falls, I'm assuming that you trained with wet ropes, or I don't know.
Absolutely. So everything, I try to create the same environment. when I'm preparing for these events. So we actually had fire trucks come in. They sent their ladders all the way up and they sprayed a heavy mist.
That you practice or
It
hire?
is. So I started walking a wire. Actually, my mom was 9 months pregnant with me. And she was walking the wire
With
still.
you?
So, I'm
Really?
sorry, 6 months pregnant. So she was walking the
Wow.
wire. I've been walking the wire longer than I've been alive.
Yeah.
But at about 18 months, I started at this height. And so does my entire family. There's actually 16 of us that still perform on the wire, believe it or not.
Have you
I'm
ever
definitely
walked
digging
in on like snowy or cold conditions? Or
So
have you thought
my
about it?
mom has walked. She did a New Year's
I need some tips
event.
before I go. Give me a few
All right,
tips.
so,
Stop this conversation.
so 1 foot in front of the other and focus. Make sure your foot is centered on the
Okay,
wire.
do you face out or down?
Actually, face the end of the wire. So I always
Okay.
face the stable
Right.
point at the other end.
Okay.
So as you take your step, make sure that your foot is centered on the wire. And what I'd like you to do is we're going to come to the middle, and I'm going to keep my hand here, but I want you to try to balance on your own.
I think you can do it, Jen. You're pretty athletic. All right, so talk about the snow. Have you ever thought about
All
doing
right, so
anything in
let's
snowy
stop right here.
conditions?
So my mom has actually walked with icicles on the wire. I was a lot younger at that
Stop.
point, but she has. And actually, one of my dreams is I've got a couple. Look at you! Wow, good job. It's a long way down.
Here,
Yeah,
I'll
you give it a try.
Yeah. All right.
So I
With
have
icicles?
I have a dream of walking in a blizzard.
Stop.
You know, it's all about, you know, what are the limits to.
Would that be
and I
a
think
new
that's what life
record?
is
Would
about.
that be-
I would imagine it would be. I don't know anyone that has.
It's harder
but,
than you think.
It is.
Yeah.
But again, you know, I enjoy those challenges. I would say my biggest goal is to walk over an active volcano. So that's something
she
that I've got
turned
a
her feet
team
a little
working on.
bit.
Well, he,
Yeah,
had
which
given,
is
he
good.
said before,
Yeah.
he said if you're wearing sneakers, because you said the best shoes are the ones your mom makes.
That's right. Yeah, so my mom
sneakers
makes,
are different?
it's kind of like an Indian moccasin.
Let's see. Yeah.
Here, go ahead and balance, but
Okay.
I'm going to keep my hand here.
She gets a hand the whole time.
Well, no, I feel like-
I mean, give us the secret though. What's
Woo! Yeah, it is hard.
Very good.
what is
So there,
your
you know,
secret for doing this?
it's really about training and preparing, both
Yeah.
physically and mentally.
All right,
And
then
I
you'll
think-
see how fast you can go across. By
Who,
the way.
me?
No, Nick.
No,
on
Nick.
we can't even get halfway across. He probably just do it.
I mean,
You know, it's all about using your extremities. Again, the more that you can use them to balance, the more stable you are. You know, part of our training is we actually try to walk, and we play as a family, we have chicken fights, we try to walk with our arms down. And again, it's just about being able to balance it, you know, with
you can take the wind.
any situation.
You can take any kind of wind.
Yeah, give him
can
some
take
wind,
wind,
Jen.
Any kind
yeah.
of force.
Give him
any kind
some
of force.
wind.
What about a little No. He can take it good. Give him like a big shove. Wow.
Probably
That's
won't
part of our
matter. He
training,
said he
though.
trained
All
like
right,
130
Nick
mile
Blenda, the
winds.
famous Blendas, are touring with the Big Apple Circus. You can see it there.